So today we're going to go ahead and continue the beginner guides for One Piece. The last one was Law. You can see the playlist at the top right. And today we're going to talk about Zoro, which is my second favorite leader. There's a couple of reasons why he is actually one of my favorites. And I think this is probably going to be the best beginner's deck that you can play when starting out in One Piece, at least for the first set, in my opinion. One of the reasons why is the leader. The leader is super simple. All he says is that if you put a Dawn underneath him, the Dawn X1, during your turn, all your characters gain 1,000 power. So he's just a 6k leader for the turn, and all your characters can be a little bit more aggro, and he has a little bit more power, or they have a little bit more power. And it's so simple, but yet very effective, because when you really think about it, it comes down to the fact that you can pretty much place one underneath the leader, and that is one less Dawn that you have to worry about for pumping to get it to 6, to get it to 7, to get it to whatever for your characters. And because of that, he is very efficient. Another reason why I really like it is because all of the cards that go with him. He's a red leader. He has 5 life, by the way, which is so good. I think all the 5 lifers is nice, because it's just an additional resource for you throughout the match. And all of the red cards are very good. We have both Namis, which one of them looks at the top 5 for basically everything in your deck that is good. And we also have the other Nami that gives you a rested Dawn card after you played something or whatever, which goes hand in hand with your leader. We have all the rush cards between Zoro, Sanji, and as well as Luffy. I use all of them in this deck personally because I just like having all of those targets available in different scenarios. Zoro's kind of your main attacker for 3. Sanji is an interesting one. Well, both Sanjis I should say, because the Sanji that you give +2 Dawn just gets that extra boost, especially since you can use the other Nami in order to use one of the rested Dawn that you pay 2 for when you actually do play it. So that way you're only using 1 Dawn outside of everything else, plus your leader. So that way he is basically what, a 7k rush attack for 2, which theoretically in that situation is 3, right? 4 with the leader. And then we have Luffy, which is interesting because I've seen lists not play this in Zoro, which I don't really get, because at the end of the day, yes, he does have, or does need 2 Dawn in order to get his when attacking effect, but he is a 7k rush attack character, which is really good. I mean, that's just a 2k out of their hand plus another 1k, or put them in a situation where they have to look at a 9k no block attacker, and it just feels really good to do that. When it really comes down to it, with this deck and Zoro in general, you really want to play as much as you can when it comes down to the amount of Dawn that you have available. Really maximizing and playing the 2 costs early on. Having a Nico Robin out as well is really important. I think when you really think about it, you have all these attackers, or you have a big attacker like Luffy or something else that can't get around a blocker, or something that is cheap that can get you on the clapback, and Nico Robin kind of takes care of that for you. Her Dawn and then the leader effect ends up being a 6k swing, which is not too bad at all. All right, let's talk about the deck a little. So we already know the leader, right? Again, 5 life is really nice. He's just a 5,000 leader in general, and then of course the Dawn effect. But when we really come down to the characters, it really comes down to, again, you want to use as much as you can as far as your Dawn on your turn, and set up for as many swings that you can in order to use your Zoro effect to the maximum potential. And what I mean by that is that you're going to be playing Sanji on 2 but not swinging, obviously. Sanji on 2 for not swinging as well, and then Zoro and swing as much as you can, as long as you have something underneath your leader as far as Dawn goes. But going through these, we have the Otama. So I've talked about this before in the Law deck, and you'll see this come up quite a bit. She has that 0,000 or 0k zero power. Okay, there you go. She has a plus 2,000 counter, which is super awesome. But really the thing is that you get to on play minus 2k something on their turn, or on your turn, or when it's played. So that really comes down to playing against Kid. So like the 8-drop Kid is a big target for this, so that way you can swing in with something else like I don't know, a Luffy or something, or even your leader. You can always use the event card, jet pistol, in order to KO something that is 8k or less. So that way you can use that in tandem with Otama. And she's just really useful. The only bad thing, but the only downside against law when you're considering decks is that you can't return it back to your hand. I don't think there's any way to get it back to your hand. We do have Tony Chopper, which is never going to be a bad card. In the starter deck format, blockers were good, and now in set 1 it's going to be just as good. Blockers don't really go anywhere, and that is in relation to the Nico Robin that we have at 4, because you kind of really want a Nico Robin on your field pretty much at any given time. She is searchable by the Nami that we talked about before, and she gets to KO something 3k or less, which again with the Otama you can go ahead and use that against any kind of blocker or any 5k with Otama, etc. So I think Nico Robin and blockers are a hand in hand on the yin and yang when it comes down to it. Again, these Namis are great. The top 5 is a really good starter to really fix your hand and just plan out what you need. Again, you really want to use your Dawn as efficiently as possible. So when you look at the top 5 and you're on, let's say, turn 2 with 3 Dawn, you probably want to use or get a Sanji here or a Sanji here. If you don't have a 2k counter, you should probably keep that in your hand or use this to play it into the next turn. Most set 1 decks don't really remove things like this pretty easily. Just use the 2 Dawn and then swing into it, or even use a Zoro. Just have an extra Dawn next turn, you know, that type of thing, or just use both Nami. So it really comes down to, again, what you really want to do and what your hand is looking like. Again, so the Nami here, again, really good with your leader effect. You just use the Dawn that you've paid for anything. You really want to use or play the card first and then use this. Don't ever do the other way around. Sanji, again, I've come across where, because I'm playing so many characters and swinging with them, a lot of players or the person you're going against will swing into your characters, and because of that, your life isn't really being touched. And Sanji really does help and fix that, because you are a 5 lifer. It is pretty easy just to take a life when you're at 4 or 5 and not worry about it. And because, again, if they're swinging at your characters, you're just not going to see those cards in general. So Sanji is great being a 2k counter, searchable by Nami, and as well as another aggressor, which is great. Brook is awesome. Another 2k counter that's searchable. So the effect of give your leader or your characters 2 rested cards is awesome. You generally don't want to play it, but when you do end up playing it, it does come up where you can give 2 of the rested to, let's say, a Sanji over here, or to your leader to give it the to give everyone the plus 1000, etc. But Sanji, again, is one of those things where you're just piling it on. I think you can either play this for 2 early game and then just leave it there and then just use it for later. Again, Sanji is just when he comes up, he is quite good. Probably more in the later game. Again, you can pay it for 2 and then just let it sit there. Eventually he'll just be a 5 or 6,000 due to your character, or just putting things underneath. But usually late into the game is what you want to use him for, because you'll have the additional Dawn available. And again, you really want Nami out here, or something else that gives you Dawn pretty easily. We already talked about Nico Robin, so don't really want to go through that. Uda. So Uda's from the film set. So what she does is that she gets a 3 or less card, red character card, out of your trash and add it to your hand. That is quite a lot. I mean, honestly, if you're at 10 Dawn and you play 4 for this, get the Zoro back, and that already basically enables you to win if you didn't have an attacker in the first place, or an additional attacker. And of course you can use the remaining Dawn on him or on your leader, or both. But getting back any of your 2Ks, your Otama, anything like that is really, really good. 4 is kind of a high cost, but because the on-play effect is so good, it makes sense. And then again, Zoro is kind of your main attacker. Anytime that you have a Dawn on your leader, you want to be playing Zoro, and just swinging in, either getting rid of their 2Ks or just putting pressure on where you need to. Luffy, I've talked about it before, where 2 Dawn underneath him just kind of wins you the game sometimes, especially if they don't have Dawn open and they just committed to all of their blockers instead. The Shanks is interesting. The Shanks, okay, so I played him at first. I was like, wow, this is dog. And then later on, I played him again because of the blocker effect and because of the rush with 10k. Sometimes it just ends up winning the game for you. So if the opponent, like in the mirror or something else, is playing Tony Chopper or something else, they can't do anything about this. They would have to combo out or counter out, and it's really hard to do that with a 10,000 character card plus your 1,000 from your leader, because you're gonna have that extra Don anyway, and it's just really good. A couple of ones that we didn't really talk about for the event cards, I really like in 2 years. This basically is another Nami for you, which is why you play as 3 instead of 4, and it is technically searchable by Nami, so you can always grab it there, but it just keeps your hand on parity, and as well as just making sure that you have what you need. It's just kind of a flex card here, honestly. Guard point and as well as Jet Pistol at 4. Both the trigger effects are nice. Being able to pop something on their turn is really funny and kind of can save you the game. And then the one cost 3k is just nice to have. You play a lot of 2k counter cards in tandem with this, with a couple extra Dawn open on their turn, can definitely let you survive a lot of different attacks. 3k is a little bit weird because 4k is where you really want to be, but it gets around 7Ks. So if they want to get a 2K out of your hand, this is a good response to that instead. All right, hopefully I explained everything that you need to know to play Zoro. Hopefully this deck list isn't too bad, but definitely try it out. Let me know and subscribe if you're new to see more decks in the future and maybe even more gameplay. I'll see you in the next one.